Hello, this is Leo Rios. My germ, my bacteria is Giardia lamblia, and the disease it causes is Giardia intestinalis. Um, I hope you enjoy the presentation. Giardia was first observed by Antony von Leeuwenhoek in 1681, while examining his own stool. Also, Lambie in 1859 both described the parasite and named it as Circomonas intestinalis. Giardia is the only intestinal flagellate known to cause endemic and epidemic diarrhea in humans. It was renamed Giardia lamblia by Stiles in 1915 to honor the Professor A. Giard of Paris and Dr. F. Lamble of Prague. An interesting side note, I knew of Giardia. This is why I kind of picked it, because I took a hunting course, and they teach you, if you get stuck in the woods and stuff. And one of the things they tell you is to never drink the water that isn't treated from a stream or river, or especially a lake or pond or any kind of sitting water. And Giardia is one of the things that you can catch from it. It was one of the initial things, or stories about it, is that it had a nickname called beaver fever because it happened around these lakes where these beaver reside, and later we'll learn about how it's carried to the water by animals around. But they would, another name for it would be beaver fever. Now a little bit on geographical distribution and habitat. Where does it live, and where does it like to inhabit? You can find it in water places around the world, ponds, lakes, rivers. So basically most places in the world. I didn't read about it being anywhere where there was ice. I imagine that it probably could be there. That is also where also excuse me, where it likes to inhabit is in your intestines, and especially the duodenum and the upper part of the jejunum. If you remember some of your bio 10, your anatomy, that part where your stomach empties out, that little hook shape, it likes to be there. That's where it lives and breeds. So here's my prop. You can see the two nuclei there. This is an older Giardia, so his tail fell off. I don't know, it fell off. So, but you can see the two nuclei there, and this used to be a pillow, but it's Giardia now. Now for a little bit of morphology. G. lamblia exists in two morphological forms, the trophozoite and the cyst. Here we can see, I believe I'm going to go on the next slide a little bit more into detail, but here we can see the trophozoite and the cyst, and the cyst of course is how it usually travels or gets passed, and this is more just a visual for the different parts, like the nucleus, the flagella. You can see other body parts. I'm going to describe more. It is the active feeding stage of the parasite, which is responsible for colonization in the intestine. So when it's living around in there, moving, that's when it's actively feeding, and that's when it's colonizing the area. The shape of it's a little bit like a pear shape, or like a tennis racket shape. When I was researching it, it's hard to, you see all the slides and they're kind of flat, but they're actually kind of, if you can imagine, like those those fish that go on the bottom of the ocean that are flat on the bottom, they have kind of like a curved top to them. They're kind of like that. They have a little bit of a concave on the bottom, and they actually have what's called it's like an adhesive disc, and that's where it'll stick to your intestines, and it goes to work, doing what it needs to do to breed. The size of them is 9 to 21 micrometer and 5 by 5 micrometer in breadth, so it's got an interesting shape. Here you can see a little bit of that shape I was discussing earlier. I found this, snipped it from the internet. It's got that kind of flat bottom and domed top look to it. They are bilateral, so they're kind of like people or humans or a lot of animals, where they have a symmetry on two sides. They have two nuclei, and they are motile, so they get around with those flagella, and each nucleus consists of large central kerosome, giving a characteristic face-like appearance to the parasite in stain preparation. The cyst. The cyst is the infective stage of the parasite. That's where it can really, go from one person to another and that kind of thing. A fully mature cyst is oval or ellipsoidal shaped. Its size is from 8 to 12 micrometer long and 7 to 10 micrometer in width. It's surrounded by a thick cyst wall. The cytoplasm is granulated and is separated from the cyst wall by a clear space. The cyst has 4 nuclei. That's for it to eventually split into 2. The remaining of the flagella and the margins of the sucking disc can be seen inside the cytoplasm. You can see them there. There's those kind of 2. Those are the discs, basically. Life cycle of Giardia lamblia. It's pretty simple. It doesn't need an intermediate host, so it doesn't need to kind of do something outside of the body for it to be passed on or anything like that. It can just go from person to person. Infection is acquired orally by ingestion of a cyst from contaminated hands or water or food. A little new term here for me too. Excistation occurs. So basically, when the cyst kind of hatches, so it's kind of shedding the outside shell part and turning into another animal. Excistation occurs in the stomach and in the duodenum in the presence of gastric acid, pancreatic enzymes. You might remember trypsin from your physiology class. An acidic environment with a pH of 1.3 to 2.7 is required for excistation. So the stomach is really, it isn't going to start breeding or isn't going to start multiplying until it gets inside your body and finds a little home to start breeding. Each cyst consists of, to produce, each cyst exists to produce 2 trophozoites in the duodenum within 30 minutes of ingestion. So it only takes 30 minutes for it to be inside your body before it's multiplying and forming colonies and that kind of thing. They use binary fission. They adhere to enterocytes through their ventral sucker mediated, possibly through surface binding lectin present on the surface of the trophozoites. So it uses these binding agents to bind to enterocytes and do their business there. Again, they'll insist again in the presence of neutral pH and bile salts. So when they start to make their way down your intestine, they'll form a cyst again, and that's how they'll make it outside of your body. The cyst is very durable, as we've learned in class. So when it gets outside the body, the cyst can just kind of float around. And continuing on with the life cycle, encystation, another one. Um, so the process of encystation begins with the appearance of encystation-specific secretory vesicles, or ESVs, in the cytoplasm of trophozoites. And what will happen is it'll form the cell wall in that environment when it has that those secretory vesicles. 24 hours after the appearance of the ESVs, the trophozoite is covered with these cyst cell wall proteins, resulting in the formation of the cyst. Formation of the cyst begins by shortening of flagella, followed by condensation of cytoplasm, and finally secretion of thick hyaline cyst wall. So if you remember hyaline, that's actually a tissue type, and it's very strong and very durable. The encysted trophozoites then undergo another phase of nuclear division and produces quadrinucleated mature cyst. The cysts, which are the infective form of parasite, are excreted in feces, and the life cycle is repeated. So once it's outside the body, it's inside the cyst, and it can float around in the environment that way. So the mode of transmission. So how does it get around? Well, the main place you'll find it is people. People are the main carrier for Giardia. Also, animals carry it, such as dogs and beavers. So that's why beavers in particular around lakes and whatnot, but also, dogs can carry it and transmit it to you. And you ingest it. So you can be infected by ingesting contaminated food, from ingesting water, person to person, due to poor hygiene. You can get it even like in a nursing home if it's floating around in there. Other places can be transmitted sexually as well. Immunocompromised people are a little more susceptible. Your immune system is capable, obviously, of fighting it, and sometimes maybe you can catch it and it really doesn't bother you too much. Like everybody's been to the lake or the river, and maybe you catch it and you really don't know it because you have a strong immune system. But if somebody's immunocompromised, they can really be hurt by it. So the pathogenesis of Giardia lamblia. The trophozoites, they're attach and to the enterocytes of the duodenum and the jejunum with the adhesive disc. The lectins on the surface of the Giardia binds to the receptors on the surface of enterocytes. This attachment process damages the microvilli of your intestine, which interfere with the nutrition absorption of the villi. So it'll start to affect your digestion. The rapid multiplication of the trophozoites eventually creates a physical barrier. So they start to form one of those biofilms, right? So they starts to multiply in such a way that it covers the inside lining of your intestine and starts to really make a problem for you. This process leads to enterocytes damage, villi atrophy, intestinal hyperpermeability, and brush border damage that causes a reduction in disaccharide. So the stool examination by microscopy is what they'll do in the lab. Direct wet mount preparation, we're familiar with that in class here. Trophozoites are identified by their characteristic falling leaf motility. So these are motile, they do get around inside your gut, and they prosper, they like living in there. Iodine wet mount preparation is where the cyst can be observed. Prevention and treatment. The treatment for giardiasis could be something, metronidazole, trinidazole, nitroimidazole derivatives. Medicines. The medicines are antibiotics. For the prevention of giardiasis, you can do things like improve your water supply. Like if you're just drink clean water, is how you would keep from getting giardia. You know, or treated. I know there's those chlorine tabs that they do if you're, you know, out in the woods and trying to survive and stuff. Um, Proper disposal of human feces. So it's probably better not to live around wherever it's disposed of. Um, have some good hygiene. You know, wash your hands. Education and health, or you know, like we're doing in class, learning about Giardia right now. Um, Learn about it. Another thing is to know where it is, or if you've heard of it being somewhere. You know, sometimes they'll like if it's not uncommon if you're going to go somewhere where it might be to look and see if it's there already. And here are some questions, hopefully that you've learned the answers to. Question number 1. Which part of the body does giardiasis affect most? Question number 2. What is giardiasis also known as? Question number 3. What are the symptoms of giardiasis? And question number 4, treatment for giardiasis can include. And that's all I have. Thanks for listening and watching and being patient with my stuttering. And those are my works cited. And I hope you enjoyed it.